That's good. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host, Don Delarente, and I'm joined by my co host, the Libra icon, Dwayne. What's going on, Dwayne?
Not much. Soccer's back. Preseason in full swing. It's starting to feel like fall again.
Yes, yes. We're going to be previewing the NFC North and the AFC North. And to help us out to do that this week, we are joined, our first time guest on Know the Score, by Miss Jade to the Max. What's going on, Jade?
Good morning
How are you?
from sunny Southern California.
Everything going well with you?
Everything is well.
Good, good. Glad that you could join us early in on a sunny California morning for you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Know the Score is a CSPN production. You can find us on the web at www.cspn.us. So we're going to start with the NFC North, and we're going to talk about Jade to the Max favorite team, the Chicago Bears. Now,
Love-hate relationship.
The Chicago Bears, they added receiver Allen Robinson, tight end Trey Burton, receiver Taylor Gabriel, linebacker Aaron Lynch, kicker Cody Parker, quarterback Chase Daniel, and all importantly, new head coach Matt Nagy. Their key losses were outside linebacker Pernell McPhee, outside linebacker Willie Young, guard Josh Sitton, wide receiver Cam Meredith, inside linebacker Jarrell Freeman, quarterback Mike Lennon, and head coach John Fox. Their key draftees were inside linebacker Roquan Smith, center and guard James Daniels, and wide receiver Anthony Miller. So last year, Jade, you guys drafted Mitchell Trubisky to help turn the franchise around as what you guys have, number 2 pick in the
That
draft?
was our first pick, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, y'all had number 1 pick, so Mitchell Trubisky went number 1.
And I'm
So
still annoyed about that. But
okay,
yeah.
so after one season, after he got to start like half the games, what do you think about Mitchell Trubisky going into this season?
I think the Bears front office needs to be slapped. Um, we have like 10 million wide receivers and nobody to throw to them. So, I think he has potential, but this is the Bears we're talking about. So, yeah.
Well,
This is why I have a love-hate relationship with them because they're dumb.
if Mitchell Trubisky actually pans out to be a good quarterback, he'll be like the 4th best quarterback in the whole history of the Chicago Bears. Because there's like Sid Luckman, Jim McMahon, my man Jay Cutler, and then it would be Mitchell Trubisky.
Who? Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
You think he was one of the top quarter? Well, we are talking about the Bears now.
Yeah, for just the
Right.
Bears
Specifically,
franchise.
yeah,
Specifically for the Bears.
I
We don't have a large pool to choose from. You're
The
right.
Bears are like the Redskins. They don't really they have like all this history, but they don't really have a history of having really good quarterbacks. Like think about the 49ers. They went from Joe Montana to Steve Young. Like that's great
Yeah.
fortune. Or the Packers. They went from, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Like, man, you don't,
or the Carolina Panthers who went from Kerry Collins and Steve Berline. So I think y'all are just fine.
Oh man, come on.
I love my
So
team, but come on, man.
So, like you said, you guys have tried to basically fill up on all these receiver positions. Like you added Allen Robinson, you added Tyler Gabriel to go along with Jordan Hayward, the running back, Tariq Cohen, the backup 1-2 duo that showed a lot of promise together last year, even though John Fox was running kind of an old school offense for the current NFL.
And you see where that got him. Fired.
Exactly. So that's why I'm going to ask you next. How do you feel about your new coach, Matt Nagy? He's coming over from Kansas City, so he's going to have a whole bunch of, variations and different types of offensive schemes and and things to show you this year. So, are you excited about your new head coach?
I'll say this. Every time I get excited about the Bears, they let me down. So I'm not going to get too excited yet. I'll give them like 3 or 4 games. See how they do, then I'll get excited. I don't expect us to go to the playoffs, but I think that the new coach, he might I think he'd be a good fit for Trubisky. Like I said, Trubisky does have potential. Um, you know, I think with all the changes that the Bears have made in this offseason, that he has room to how do I put this nicely? Um, I'll just say he has potential. I don't want to be negative.
Okay, okay,
He's got room to grow. Like he's a young quarterback, So and he's still this is his second year. He's still developing, still learning. But I think with the new coach, and like you said, the last coach was running like a really old school offense, and it didn't fit with the current state of the NFL right now. So with this new coach, I think that Trubisky he might do well. He might have a few surprise. He might impress me
okay,
this
okay.
year. So he's
Dwayne,
got receivers. So hopefully there's some chemistry there and they can get some things done on the field.
what about your offensive line? Do you like your offensive line? He's got enough protection.
Well, considering that Jay Cutler constantly got sacked, I mean, we can't get any worse. Um, I think with who we drafted and who we picked up, I think it should be good. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see the game, the preseason game on Thursday. I know we lost, but I think that I think the boys just need to keep working at it and just find their groove. Again, I think our front office needs to retire, but with what we've got now, I think we've got a potential to win more than 4 games this season.
Okay.
So
So Dwayne, I'm gonna bring you in. The Bears have long been built on their defense.
Right.
So they did lose some really key pieces on their defense, especially Pernell McPhee. So talk about kind of Nagy coming in, new coach. Of course, we talked a bunch last week about new coaches, new regime, but the Bears, especially on defense, their defense was really good last year.
It
It's just
was.
they just didn't score enough points, and it had key turnovers from a rookie quarterback in the key situations, and that's really how they lost most of their games. But they were very competitive through their defense. So just talk about how losing McPhee and Willie Young is going to hurt them. This year coming in with a new coach.
Well, it's going to hurt them in terms of they lose that leadership, that veteran presence, and it also affects them in terms of, Jarrell Freeman was a tackling machine from his days in Indianapolis when he wasn't suspended. He was pretty effective. I and when you have a defensive minded coach, including probably one of the worst games I ever saw last year, maybe depending on how you look at it, when the Bears beat the Panthers without scoring a single offensive touchdown. That was pretty awful, but that was kind of the epitome of the how it was for the Bears last season. Um, but when you have a coach that was used to that's defensive minded anyway, and his offensive philosophy was play to punt the ball, um, it kind of is going to be a refreshing and refreshing focal point because I think the Bears they've lived off the monsters of the Midway defensive moniker for almost 30 years now. And I think it's time to change the philosophy and focus it more on a evolving offense. And you got a young quarterback in Trubisky. You have a dynamic running back in Tariq Cohen. Shout out to A&T, Aggie Pride. Um, you got receivers now, so I think now you might on the defensive side. When you lose that veteran leadership, somebody's going to have to really step it up. I think they might give up a little bit more points, but I think the offense may be built to score more points. So that's kind of like an even trade off. I think they want to change that identity from more defensive focused team to an offensively focused team, and even with You had Jay Cutler, who was a pretty, statistically, he had the probably the most yards in Bears history, but he was still suffocating under John Fox's coaching, so that did not help. I think it probably been a different story if he had a more offensive minded coach, but I think even with the offensive minded coaching, it did not work well. See Mark Trestman, but um, I think there's an optimism in Chicago. I'm not going to put them on the pedestal like I did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year because we all know how that turned out, but we'll see how it goes from there.
All right. Now we're going to talk about Jade. You're familiar with this person because you watch a lot of SEC football. The number one draft pick from Georgia, inside linebacker Roquan Smith, tackling machine. But they had some issues with him getting into camp because of some language. With they're afraid of he's such a tackling machine and such a reckless player that he may, acquire a lot of fines with the new tackling rules that we have in the NFL. So, talk about your excitement, Jade, for adding Roquan Smith to your defense. Young player, exciting player, should cause a lot of havoc. Jade, you still there?
I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute. Um, I never been concerned about the Bears defense. Like Dwayne said, the Bears have always been a defensive minded team. But with regard to Roquan Smith, I feel like every year the NFL comes up with these new rules. Just let them play, you know. But I'm excited to have somebody from the SEC on the team. Not a fan of Georgia, but we'll take him. He was a defensive player of the year, pretty elite player. So he's a great addition to our defense. I'm sorry, he's just a. I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see him in action. Yeah.
All right. So that is the Chicago Bears. So we're going to shift over to the Detroit Lions. Their key additions were tight end Levon Tiliolo, running back LeGarrette Blunt, defensive tackle Sylvester Williams, tight end Luke Wilson, cornerback Deshaun Sheed, linebacker Devin Kennard, linebacker Christian Jones, and head coach Pat Patricia. Their key losses were tight end Eric Ebron, defensive tackle Haloti Nada, linebackers Ahir Whitehead, cornerback DJ Hayden, tight end Darren Fells, and head coach Jim Caldwell. Their key rookies, center Frank Raganow and running back Kerryon Johnson. So Detroit coming off a coaching change. They were really close to making the playoffs last year, but of course they lost all of their close games, and usually that comes down to coaching. So Jim Caldwell, no matter how popular he was and how much Matthew Stafford liked him, he got fired. So we're going to bring Dwayne in to start with Detroit. Pat Patricia coming in from the Patriots, defensive-minded coach. Detroit has been pretty strong on defense past couple of years. How do you think that this is going to affect Matthew Stafford now, who may have a coach that may be a little bit more conservative with the way that the play calls come in and may not take him being as reckless with the football as we know that Matthew Stafford can be?
Well, because Matthew Stafford is reckless with the football, and he's probably thrown more times in his career since '09 than anybody else. I think this might actually help him because you want to kind of save that arm the for when it counts the most. But I kind of think that they're going to take a step backwards on defense, even with the defensive minded head coach. Have you seen the Patriots defense over the last few years under Matt Patricia? It's not been that great. So, and we all know that every single time that a team gets a coach from the Patriot coaching tree, it never works out. Look at Romeo Crennel, prime example. Charlie Weiss, he couldn't even win at Kansas, and Kansas college football is horrible. So I'm kind of, yeah, I'm thinking they're going to take a step backwards a little bit because even with this conservative offense, you did not replace Eric Ebron with a good tight end. I mean, Atlanta fans literally called Toyolo toilet. So, so how is this going to help Eric Ebron, who had stone hands himself, with somebody who also has stone hands? So, I'm going to just say pretty much that this is going to be a very interesting transition in Detroit. Um, I mean, I really think unless you get a Bill Belichick and not a Bill Belichick disciple, you'll be successful. You lose one of your top tacklers in the NFL, and Tahir Whitehead. You lose Haloti Nada along on the defensive side. So, two big pieces in that defense, plus the fact that the Patriots defense. I mean, they gave up 41 points in the Super Bowl, and they gave up a lot of points most of the season. So it's going to be really depending on health and if you know health and a little bit of luck in Detroit.
All right, Miss J to the max. I'm going to bring you in because you know your division better than anybody else.
I
What
would
is
hope so.
what is your thoughts on just Detroit Lions as a team when your team gets ready to play them? Like, who are the players that you're like, man, I hate playing Detroit because this player always does well,
Hmm.
or you're like, oh, I like when we play Detroit because I know we're going to make this player look bad. Kind of, what are your feelings about Detroit?
Um, Pretty much any team that plays the Bears makes the Bears look bad. So I can't really say that there's any one particular person on the Detroit Lions that I don't like. Um, I do enjoy watching us play the Lions. For me, it's always a fun game to watch. But I think that I mean Stafford's he's a good quarterback. I think that with um, the change that I think Detroit has a lot of potential this season to. I mean, not considering how they played in their preseason game, but I think they may have potential to make the playoffs this season. I know they have two of their players, Alex Barrett and Miles Kilbrew, have changed positions. So that might be good for their defense, help kind of help them get out of a rut there. But the Lions and the Bears, I mean, I don't hate the Lions. I only hate the Packers. So it's like I said, it's always a fun game to watch. And both teams have made a lot of changes this season, so it's kind of like starting fresh almost. So it's like seeing two completely new or completely new teams kind of battle it out. I think we got a chance uh, with. With our new players. Like I said, Trubisky, I think he's going to do pretty well this year. So that'll be a good game to watch. I'm looking forward to that one.
All right. This is Know the Score. We are reviewing the NFC North currently. We are found on the CSPN. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play as well. So we're going to get into the team that Jade hates the most,
Oh.
the Green Bay Packers. Their key, their
Go.
key
The
additions,
snack pack.
key additions, tight end Jimmy Graham, defensive tackle Muhammad Wilkinson, quarterback Deshaun Kaiser, tight end Mercedes Lewis, and defensive coordinator Mike Pettin. Their key losses: wide receiver Jordy Nelson, cornerback Demarius Randall, safety Morgan Burnett, wide receiver Jeff Janis, tight end Richard Rogers, and defensive coordinator Dom Capers. Their key rookies are cornerback Jahiri Alexander and cornerback Josh Jackson. So, Jade, since you talked about your disdain for the Packers, I'll just let you go off on why the Packers are the team that you hate the most.
Everybody in Chicago hates the Packers.
Okay.
Just a long-standing rivalry, but I think more so within the last few years, we hate them more because they just keep beating us. So I don't know that it's even a rivalry anymore. It's just hate. But it's something about the Packers. As much as I hate them, I have to give them credit. They have a lot of team chemistry. Aaron Rodgers is a phenomenal quarterback. and they just, I don't know, they've just got something like, there have been times when I'm watching them play us and we'll be up and it's like, oh, the Packers are totally going to lose this game. And just out of nowhere, they just rally. And I don't know, man, the Bears are just like either we're a first half team or a second half team, or we just don't play at all. But I think with who they had, with their pickups, their draft picks, I think they're going to be really, uh, they're going to be good. Aaron Rodgers, as long as Rodgers stays healthy. So I think that hopefully the Bears can win at least one game against them this year. I won't hold my breath on that one, but the Bears just make me so sad, man. It's just none of my teams are that good. I need new teams. But they've got, like I said, the Packers just have insane chemistry. And the veterans with the rookies, they're going to be good this year.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking forward to Aaron Rodgers coming back. He got injured and missed a lot of the season with the broken collarbone last year. Dwayne, we're going to talk about the Packers defensively because they made changes. Dom Capers, longtime defensive coordinator, he is out, and they're bringing in Mike Pettin. So talk about what you think the Packers defense, how that's going to look. Their secondary, though, it looks like they're coming of age. Clinton Dix looks like he's rounding into, becoming a smarter football player and not just using his talents. And last year, he had a career year for himself. But talk about the switch on defense and how that may affect the Packers and improve them, or do you think they're going to take a step back?
I think with the addition of Mike Patton, who's a very decent defensive coordinator, I kind of liken him to North Turner when it comes to being a coordinator and not a head coach. We saw his disastrous tenure in Cleveland. Well, actually, it wasn't too bad. They've kind of finished strong. They had more wins than Hugh Jackson did, but we'll get to the Browns in a second. But I like the addition of Mike Patton. If you really look at how successful the New York Jets were early on in the Rex Ryan era, that team was built on defense, and a guy that knows that philosophy is Muhammad Wilkerson, and that's one reason why the Packers brought him in to plug that hole up front. Be a good run stopper. I think health was an issue too. Not only was Clinton Dix the top guy on the team. I mean, he had no choice because the rest of the secondary was out with injuries, and so adding youth, getting rid of Morgan Burnett and Demarius Randall, kind of helps out the team because you get young guys who are ball hawks and ready to play, and Clinton Dix is going to have to be the leader of the secondary. They still have a healthy Clay Matthews. Whenever he's healthy, he's effective, except when he's trying to guess what plays that the quarterback's trying to call. But I think aside from that, this team is better on defense. I think as long as they stay healthy, they should have a better time protecting leads for Aaron Rodgers in that offense. And I think probably the biggest winner here is DeShone Kizer. I mean, he went from 0-4 in Cleveland to being Aaron Rodgers' backup. That's kind of an upgrade. So shout out to him.
Jade, I want to bring you in for a good levity question here. Who has the better hair, Clay Matthews or AJ Styles?
That's a tough one. I love Clay Matthews' hair, but AJ Styles' hair just looks like L'Oreal Perfect. Like, the commercial where the women are like, if you use L'Oreal or whatever, hair, Head and Shoulders, your hair look like this. That's like AJ Styles. But man,
it's
I
the
don't
perfect
know.
slow motion.
It is. AJ Styles he catches so much wind and it's just so bouncy and I don't know. Like maybe because Clay Matthews has like helmet hair, but like when he doesn't, I don't know. That's a hard one.
All right. Toss up. Toss the coin
Toss
up with
up.
overtime.
I was, you know what? AJ Styles probably has a better blow dry. That's what it is.
Okay. All right. AJ Styles with a slight edge with the product. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
He
right.
uses the right stuff. You know, he's got probably got his coconut oil and all that stuff in there, Moroccan oil. Yeah. It's got a nice shine, look good body.
There you go.
See?
We're
All
gonna
right.
move. We're gonna move on to the team who won the division last year, the Minnesota Vikings. Their key additions were quarterback Kirk Cousins, defensive tackle Shelton Richardson, quarterback Trevor Siemian. Their key losses: running back Jarrett McKinnon, wide receiver Jarius Wright, quarterback Case Keenum, quarterback Sam Bradford, quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, cornerback Tremaine Brock, and their key rookies, cornerback Mike Hughes, offensive tackle Brian O'Neill, and defensive end Jalen Holmes. So Minnesota uh, took everybody on a cool ride last year for Minnesota. They got to the NFC Championship game. They fell a little bit short against Philly. Um, and they made some major changes. They lost their whole quarterback room, and they brought in Kirk Cousins on their big deal, $80 million guaranteed. They lost their running back and Jerick McKinnon, who was filling in last year for injured Dalvin Cook. So we can add Dalvin Cook to the additions as he's coming back off of an ACL tear. Jade, the Minnesota Vikings last year were the class of the division. A lot of people have, been about their defense the past few years. Their defense has been really good, but last year Case Keenum, brought their offense to heights that they hadn't seen in a while. So, what do you expect to see out of Minnesota this year with Kirk Cousins? And do
Um,
you think that he's an upgrade from Case Keenum?
so the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, finished last season 13-3, which is, nothing to I mean that was really great. So that's nothing to like balk at. But I guess my concern is, or my question was, why the change with I mean, I guess Kirk Cousins is an upgrade. I don't know. Um, but like you said, a lot of the teams in the NFC North have been so focused on their defense. And Minnesota seems to focus more on their offense. I think you need to have a balance of both. But I think with Kirk Cousins, they I mean, thinking about the quarterbacks in the division, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Kirk Cousins, Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, Kirk, I don't know that I would call it an upgrade. We'll have to see what he does, because if he goes, 6-10, then obviously it's not an upgrade.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just a firm believer, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay. Now, the way I'll bring you in on Minnesota, their their defense there in the second half of the Philly game really let them down as
Oh yeah.
as Philly just started running the ball on them, and they could not stop the run. So um, they've tried to upgrade that by bringing in Shelton Richardson to try to anchor the middle of the line back down. We know that Mike Zimmer is a really good defensive minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they've made enough additions on defense and maybe some scheme changes where they won't be so susceptible in that late game failure like they were last year?
I think they just ran into a bad day. I mean, they were successful for 17 games, well, 13, 16 games in America, won 13-3, and then we know the miracle in Minneapolis with the Saints and everything. That was that wild finish. But I think it was just a case they ran into a juggernaut that was the Philadelphia Eagles last year. I mean that was one of the I'd also think doing the skull chant on the Rocky Steps was a bad idea. But hey, do your thing. And I think that karma just came back to haunt Vikings fans doing you don't disrespect Rocky like that. I'm sorry. But But if you really look at it, the this was a good, an excellent defensive team. I mean, I definitely rode their fantasy coattails to a title, so I can attest to that. But um, I think adding Sheldon Richardson is a improvement. I think they'll improve their late game management and then, let the very sour taste in their mouths. I think that on the offensive side, Kirk Cousins is the god in Minneapolis. I think they now put their whole faith into him. I don't know why they wouldn't keep a guy that led them to a 13-3 record in Case Keenum, but I want to just mind my business over here. That's why I'm not paid the big bucks to make these decisions. But on the defensive side, I think this is an improvement. I think one they usually say one game doesn't define a season. I think the way they ended, the way the running game just gashed, the Eagles' running game just gashed that defense. It kind of did define their off season. So making these improvements will help out an already excellent defense, and we'll just have to see how it goes from there.
All right. Now, what I'll be looking for, especially with Kirk Cousins, is as I have intimate knowledge of what he did well for us and what he didn't do for us, is he's a great quarterback from the 20 to the 20. I will be interested to see how many field goals and how many drives end up in touchdowns for Minnesota once they get inside the red zone. Because I think the reason that Kirk Cousins didn't get paid for the Redskins was his numbers were great, but we left a lot of points out there and we lost a lot of games where, man, we would have got a touchdown there instead of a field goal. We probably would have won this game. And that kind of comes down to the quarterback in that situation. So I'll be really tuned in to see Minnesota, what their touchdown percentages are in the red zone for this upcoming season. So we're at the end of our NFC North preview. So at this point, I'm going to ask Jade. You don't have to give me a record, but just tell me, who do you think is going to finish first, second, third, so on, and who do you think is going to go to the playoffs out of this division?
As much as I love the Bears, I think we're going to finish last in the division. I think as long as, like I said, as long as Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, the Packers have the potential to, I think, between the Packers and the Vikings to finish number one in the division. And then the Bears just at the bottom. My poor guys. They don't stand a chance.
All right. Dwayne, your finishing order for the NFC North.
Finishing order for the NFC North. I had a Kirk Cousins thought, but it just slipped my mind. My mic was on mute, so sorry. But my order, I will have to say Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago, and Detroit.
I'm so honored.
You
have more faith in my team than I do.
Hey, I think the Bears. Look, I was high on Trubisky, and the only reason why he really didn't get a chance was because he had the fossil John Fox as the head coach. I know about that all too well. John Fox was the Panthers head coach for all those years. Thanks for the Super Bowl loss, but whatever. But I think if this offense clicks and stays healthy with Trubisky, Howard, Cohen, Robinson, and all those guys, they might be able to do some damage. And I'm not gonna go playoff high, but I think they could go 9-7 at least.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Minnesota again, being the best team in the division with the Packers close behind them. And then I think Detroit and the Bears, you could flip flop them. However, whoever wins the most games between them when they go head to head, if they split, then I would take the Bears. just because I think their quarterbacking and their team is on the uprise, where Detroit is kind of in the midst of getting ready to maybe do like a whole overhaul. So that's kind of my prediction. I think Minnesota is going to retain the top spot, and the Packers are going to be close behind them. So I think they may get.
Oh, I have my Kirk Cousins on. I'm sorry. So, Kirk Cousins, not only does he have to score in the red zone, he needs to beat winning teams. He is not good against teams that have above 500 records. That's what my thought was.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep. That's another thing as well. Big games, big time games against big time teams and big time defenses. Yeah. So we'll know if that was more of a Jay Gruden thing or if it was a Kirk Cousins thing for fans of the Washington football team once he's outside of that bubble. So that'll be interesting. Good point, Dwayne. Know the Score this week is being brought to you by Amazon.com. Please head over to Amazon through CSPN.us. Go to CSPN.us, click on the tab that says Keep the Podcast Free. Click on that tab, and then the very first link you'll get to will be Amazon. Do your shopping like you normally would, and some of your purchase will come back to the CSPN to help keep Know the Score free each and every week. So CSPN and Amazon.com, do it today. We're going to shift over to the AFC North. We're going to talk about first the Baltimore Ravens. They added receiver Michael Crabtree, receiver John Brown, and receiver Willie Snead. They also picked up quarterback Robert Griffin III. Their key losses: wide receiver Mike Wallace, wide receiver Michael Campanaro, wide receiver Jeremy Maclin, center Ryan Jensen, tight end Benjamin Watson, running back Danny Woodhead, and safety Ladarius Webb. Their key rookies were tight end Hayden Hurst, quarterback Lamar Jackson, and offensive tackle Orlando Brown. So last year, the Baltimore Ravens found themselves in a very unfamiliar position outside of the playoffs, as John Harbaugh had been one of the most consistent coaches to start a career. I think he'd been in playoffs like every season since he'd been a head coach. Joe Flacco fell off the cliff last year. They had a lot of injuries on offense and defense as well. Terrell Suggs missed a lot of the season with a torn Achilles. So I'm going to bring Dwayne in to start out. They got a lot of excitement with Lamar Jackson in the fold, but hopefully for Baltimore, they don't have to see him at all this year. Joe Flacco, returns back to his, winning ways. They made a lot of changes at the receiver position this year. So talk about what you see from the Baltimore's offense. They've always been a team that's kind of been a little lackluster when it comes to the receiver position, even when they were winning and having success. So what do you think this new crop of receivers will bring to their franchise?
Well, the sun is setting on the Joe Flacco era in Baltimore. Just the look of how Joe Flacco was looking at Lamar Jackson in that one picture. Woo, boy, he knew his time was coming to an end, and it's coming to an end pretty soon. But don't forget RG3 is there too. So, it's good for RG3 to be back on the field after all he's been through. So, but to answer the question about the receivers, so I think this is probably the best receiving core that the Ravens have had in their existence, and they've been in existence since 1996. So 22 years, they actually got guys more than one guy who can actually do a lot of damage. I mean, yeah, they had Steve Smith for a few years. That was probably one of their best acquisitions on the receiver position, but as a collective, this is a great group of receivers. They'll be able to get, whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Flacco, Griffin, or Jackson, they'll be able to get him a lot of yards after the catch. I know Willie Snead was very good for that during his time with Drew Brees in New Orleans. Michael Crabtree's, he's got a nose for the end zone, and so there's a lot of good good guys here for Flacco to succeed. Especially with the sun setting on his time in Baltimore. I mean, the writing's on the wall. You don't get a first round pick in Lamar Jackson keep him on the bench. But um, I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see what Flacco does with these weapons that he has at his disposal, and it's really going to be up to him at this point. Does he, if he doesn't, do anything with these weapons? I mean, he had a lot of success without a lot of weapons, so it's only fair to see if he can improve and not let the fact that a first round pick is trying to take a spot.
All right. Jade, as a fan of football, just what do you see when you watch Baltimore Ravens football games? What excites you about their team? I know as an outsider, you don't know, as many as the ins and outs. But when you watch them, what is your perception of, their franchise?
They're really they're an interesting team to watch because they're it's very competitive. I mean, you just watch them play the Steelers. That's just such a nasty rivalry there. And it just carries over into when they play other teams too, which is good. They're a very intense team. But I think that, like Dwayne said, it's winding down for Joe Flacco. I think that there are some players that are just kind of flying under the radar who have a lot of potential to actually carry this team, including Hayden Hurst. You've also got Orlando Brown Jr., like you said. I mean, these are, you have Chris Moore, although he's not like a starter, but he has the potential to make Flacco look good. I'll say that. And then again, Lamar Jackson. So I think while, yes, it is up to Joe Flacco, what he can do, I also think these players, I mean, that's part of being a part of the team. But I think these players that people just aren't necessarily looking for to really do much, I think those are the ones that are really going to be a surprise this season or quote unquote surprise this season for the Ravens.
All right. Next, we're going to move up to the Cincinnati Bengals. Their key additions were linebacker Preston Brown, offensive lineman Corey Glenn, defensive tackle Chris Baker, quarterback Matt Barkley. Their key losses: center Russell Bodine, running back Jeremy Hill, quarterback AJ McCarron, offensive lineman Andre Smith, and defensive end Chris Smith. Their key rookies: center Billy Price, safety Jesse Bates, linebacker Malik Jefferson. So Cincinnati Bengals, coming off a very disappointing season last year. Everybody thought that maybe they would be a sleeper team to kind of really contend for the division last year and maybe, really be a threat in the playoffs. But Marvin Lewis still has that, that kind of thing where he just can't get out, his team can't get out of its own way. So, Jade, I want to get your thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals. When you watch them and Andy Dalton especially. What are your thoughts about Andy Dalton as a franchise quarterback?
Well, they beat us in the preseason game the other day. So, yeah, not by much. But I don't pay much attention to the Bengals. But they have a lot of they have some legit talent to really do some things this year in their division. I'm not saying I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think with Andy Dalton at QB, they've got some talent on both sides. I think that they could at least win 10 games this season. Now I'm giving them too much credit. They can win 8 games this season. You got to keep your expectations low so that you don't get disappointed.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, I'm going to bring you in here, Dwayne. Last year, Joe Mixon came on the scene. Of course, he had a lot of controversy surrounding him. He appeared to be the goods, so that allows them to depart with Jeremy Hill. But I think what a lot of people are not accounting for, maybe they are, is that they're losing 2 of their best offensive linemen in their center and offensive tackle, Russell Bodine and Andre Smith, respectively. So talk about how that's going to affect their offense. Last year was a dip in their offense. They had been one of the more explosive teams in the league, but last year overall, the offense took a big dip. So Just talk about losing those two big pillars on the offensive line and what you expect. How do you expect that to hinder their offense this year?
Yeah, losing those guys is a huge blow to the offense as a whole. But I think you shuffle some guys around. You know, maybe put Whitworth on the other side, and get some, develop some talent up at the front of the line, get the chemistry going, and I think it will be a better fit for Andy Dalton and this Bengals team. My concern about the Bengals right now is that are they going to be one dimensional? I mean, with Joe, I mean, you got Mixon there, you got Gio Bernard there. Um, with the passing game, do you still? I mean, you got Tyler Eifert. Is he going to be enough of a decoy to allow AJ Green to get open? I mean, AJ Green can catch the ball in double and sometimes triple coverage. I mean, for quite some time, he was one of the top receivers in my book, top 10 receivers in my book. So, um, but if Andy Dalton isn't going to be running for his life, he should be okay if they get enough talent to keep the ball, to keep the ball moving forward and not backwards. Of course, you want to just, that's subjective, but I just think that, you lose a lot of talent, but, you have the chance to develop the talent. And even with Marvin Lewis, who's somehow surviving this coaching thing, along with the fact that Mike Brown is cheap. So they kind of have no choice but to develop the talent because Mike Brown's not going to pay anybody. So there you go.
I think that with the Bengals, something that they didn't have last year is that like their core players, they well at least the ones on defense, a good portion of them were rookies last year. Or I'm sorry, they were a lot of them were rookies, but just like their core players were like really young. So now, a lot of them on defense, they have, a little bit more experience under their belt. I think they'll be able to better contribute. And then also, as far as offensive, since they've improved their offensive line, they are going to have their offensive players will make better contributions as well.
All right. Cincinnati Bengals looking to rebound after a very disappointing year last year. I was looking for them they were going to be one of my sleeper teams last year. I was really kind of high on them, but they had a lot of injuries to start off, and then Andy Dalton didn't rise up once people started getting hurt, and the season just tanked. So now we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns. Key additions: Tyrod Taylor, receiver Jarvis Landry, offensive tackle Chris Hubbard, running back Carlos Hyde, cornerback EJ Gaines, cornerback TJ Carey, quarterback Drew Stanton, wide receiver Jeff Janis, defensive end Chris Smith, cornerback Terrence Mitchell, and offensive lineman Donald Stevenson. Their key losses were cornerback Jamar Taylor, running back Isaiah Crowell, defensive lineman Danny Shelton, defensive back Jason McCourty, and quarterback Deshaun Kaiser. Their key rookies were number 1 pick Baker Mayfield, cornerback Denzel Ward, running back Nick Chubb, and defensive end Chad Thomas. Of course, Cleveland Browns, the perennial laughingstock of the NFL. They don't get any love, but
see, I'm laughing now.
Right. Exactly.
They actually, in all accounts and by all accords, had one of the most substantial drafts in recent history, with the haul of Baker Mayfield at number 1, Denzel Ward at number 4, and then Nick Chubb in the beginning of the second round. So everybody is putting a lot of good mojo towards the Cleveland Browns, maybe not for this year, but their future. So, Jade, I'm going to bring you in first. Do you think in the next that the Cleveland Browns can win this division?
As long as Jimmy Haslam is the owner of the Cleveland Browns, no.
That's what it is, though.
Jimmy Haslam is about as useful as his pilot stations. Um,
And they are pretty useless.
so
Probably got the cheap gas in South Carolina though. Hold on now.
and like cheap in
Yeah,
every
cheap
sense of the word.
quality. Cheap quality.
In every sense. Your car has probably got all kinds of sludge in it. I have a almost a slight disdain for Jimmy Haslam. He is one of the boosters for the Tennessee Volunteers, and he's not a doesn't make good decisions. But that's another podcast for another day. Talking about the Browns, they have a real quarterback, but they have a real quarterback. They've got some talent on both sides of the ball. They beat the Giants in preseason the other day, but again, preseason isn't really telling of what it's kind of anticlimactic. It's like watching a scrimmage. But
Remember, the Lions went 4-0 in the preseason, went 0-16.
exactly. So, uh, so yeah. But they've got Baker Mayfield. So they do have a real quarterback. They've got some talent on both sides of the ball now. But again, this is the Cleveland Browns. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world on, with the QB, but if your players aren't producing on offense or defense, then it doesn't really matter.
All right,
I
Dwayne.
just hope that his stock doesn't go down,
Bakers.
Yeah.
I think that like Johnny Manziel was cocky, but Johnny Manziel didn't have the track record to go with it. He had like that one flash of a season.
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield's cocky, and he's got the 4 years to go with it, or the 3+ years to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's going to be the difference maker for him. People can go back, and if they ask him, hey man, why you have such this great attitude, he can go, well, hey, look at this in my sophomore year, my senior year, my junior year, I did all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to help him out. Now, Dwayne, I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you think that the Browns in 4 years can win the AFC North with this collection of young players that they've added through this draft?
Come on, man. This is a tough question, man.
You have to. This is a general manager thing. You have to project. You can't be like the Redskins and only think season to season. You got to think like far out than just what's in front of your nose, man.
You got a point. So, and I can kind of. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up for the Browns. I mean, they're 0-16. They're one for the last 31. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, this pretty
And
much.
here I am talking about the Bears.
This is why I always tell people like every single time my sister or my mom talks bad about the Panthers, I'm like, we could be the Browns. And
It could be worse.
Right. So like I've seen a 1-15 season. I've seen a 2-14. Never seen an 0-16, thank the Lord, but 1-15 is bad enough as it is. So I think they have the chance. It's always a chance. I mean, but you got Pittsburgh and you got Baltimore in your division. So, and as long as Dalton and Green are healthy and around, and if they could get a different head coach, Cincinnati's around. So they have a chance to win the division in 4 years, but you still got to find a way to get through at least mainly Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I mean, that's going to be really the because they're the class of the division, and they're the models of consistency, and the Browns are the models of inconsistency. Yes, they're trying to change that culture, and they did have a very excellent draft with Mayfield and Leonard Ward at 4, but and bringing in Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, like they overhauled this whole team practically. And if and when Josh Gordon gets his life together and can focus on the football field without any distractions, he's going to be, think about that, two-headed monster Landry and Gordon. I mean, you got a vertical threat in Gordon and a horizontal threat in Landry. I mean, let's face it, Jarvis Landry is the only person we know that will get 11 catches and have 77 yards because he runs east and west instead of north and south. So, He's good at getting away from people, but he never goes up the field. So um, they have a very good running back room: Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson, um, and Carlos Hyde.
Carlos Hyde. Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be a nice three headed monster there. So I mean, this has the Browns have a chance. Like I said, there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, if Hugh Jackson can't do anything with this, then he definitely needs to be gone after this season. I'm still surprised that he still has a job after being 1-31 in the last two seasons. Like
A lot of
that's
times when coaches keep their jobs like that, it's because they're cheap. They're probably not paying them a lot. So,
Jimmy Haslam cheap. Exactly.
Exactly. What did we
It
just
goes
say?
back to
We
Jimmy
just
Haslam.
well, I mean
said.
but that happens to a lot. Unfortunately, that happens to a lot of first time coordinator head coaches who aren't like coming in from college or something.
But Hugh
So,
Jackson is in the first. He's been a head coach before.
oh yeah, but
So
I don't think anybody counted that in Oakland as no head coaching really chance. I think they kind of be like, nah, that really didn't happen. They don't even hold that against
Al Davis was cheap and kept him. That's what happened.
them.
Hugh Jackson's like the cheap option right now.
See,
And
it's
he's
like everything. Just when I thought the Bears front office was bad, and then it's like, wait, there's always like in every instance, you can always say there's always the Browns. Oh, the Bears aren't that good, but there's always the Browns.
there's always the
The
Browns.
Bears front office sucks. There's always
Always
the
the Browns.
Browns.
The Bears ownership sucks, but there's always the
The
Browns.
Browns. I'm sorry for every bad thing I said about the Bears.
So
No
But,
more hate.
but it goes back. So yeah, so now you bring up the whole cheap option. It seems like the owners in Ohio are just that. Just that. Mike Brown is cheap. We know that. That's been well documented. Like hell, the Bengals still don't have a practice facility. Like
That
they
is
practice,
crazy.
yeah, they practice at. I think they practice at the University of Cincinnati a lot. So they don't have their own training facility, and Jimmy Haslam. I mean, he won't. I mean, he's definitely not going to pay for two head coaches. So he's going to let Hugh Jackson suffer and suffer and suffer. I mean, we know Cleveland has been known as a black hole of sports until LeBron and them won the title a few years ago. But um, the foundation did start with the first and fourth pick because remember that year the Cavs drafted Irving and then Tristan Thompson. Now all they got to do is get some kind of superstar to come to Cleveland. Hard thing to do, but and they have a cheap owner in Dan Gilbert. Oh my gosh, Cleveland's like the place of cheap owners. I just thought about that.
you have to be frugal, man. It's the Midwest. They got hard winters, and there's not a lot of attractions. For that part of the country, if you're not a roller coaster fan, so they have to be more, frugal and conservative with their spending because it just goes along with the area of the country they live in.
Yeah, and I think
Ohio does have some dope roller coasters.
they
Just
do.
saying.
Oh, for sure.
Cedar Point, Kings Island. Yeah,
The best in the world. Too
yes,
bad they
So,
don't have the football team to match.
right. I mean,
Football teams with an S.
yeah. So, yeah. So, like I said, nowhere to go but up for the Browns at this point. I think that, like I said, Hugh Jackson can't do anything with this pool of talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which is his specialty. Then they got to go in a different direction again. Uh,
All right.
so we'll leave it at that.
Next up, the final team in the division, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their key additions: safety Morgan Burnett, inside linebacker John Bostic. Their key losses: offensive tackle Chris Hubbard, cornerback William Gay, free safety Mike Mitchell, wide receiver Martavius Bryant, and linebacker Arthur Moats. Their key rookies: safety Terrell Edmonds, wide receiver James Washington, and quarterback Mason Rudolph. So we're presumably in the last year of Le'Veon Bell being a Steeler because they franchised him twice, and I don't think they're going to pay him a huge, huge, huge contract. to keep him on the team. We may be in the final year of Ben Roethlisberger as he's contemplated retirement the past couple of seasons, but really sounded set on it after they got beat by Jacksonville in the playoffs. So we've got, a team that's kind of had very high expectations last year. Everybody thought that they were going to be able to knock off the Patriots and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. They didn't even get to the AFC Championship game. So, Jade, what do you see for the Steelers this year when you look at them from the outside looking in? Are they going to be able to keep all this turmoil that they have around their team? Are they going to be able to, suppress that enough to make one final run at the Super Bowl?
Well, considering that they are the most talented team in the division, they're still, have to go their entire season without Ryan Shazier, which obviously had an effect on a negative effect on the team last year. But I think that, with Rapey Ben still at QB, he's a good quarterback. He's just a shitty person, but. He's a good quarterback, but I think that the Steelers can make a run. Do I think they're going to make it all the way to Super Bowl? Probably. I don't know. Let me take that back. No, they won't make the Super Bowl, but they'll have a good run in the playoffs. And like I said, yesterday they beat the defending Super Bowl champs, but again, preseason's not really indicative of what you're going to do in the regular season. So. Again, another fun team to watch, especially when they're playing the Ravens. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. Dwayne, I'm going to bring you in on Pittsburgh. They're going to be having a new offense this year as they got rid of Todd Haley. He's now up in Cleveland. So Ben's going to presumably...
Every time you say Cleveland, it just makes us laugh.
He's going to presumably, I guess, have some more freedom, some more explosiveness added into this offense. What do you see from Ben Roethlisberger and what could potentially be his final year as a Pittsburgh Steeler? Can he lead them to the promised land?
Oh, gosh. Did you see the way Jacksonville whooped up on Ben Roethlisberger last year?
Twice.
It's like twice. Exactly. They took that man's soul. Like, it was just like watching it go into an urn or something. I don't know. So I don't think. I think. He barely can move around the pocket when he gets banged up like that. They have like Jay said, they have the talent. Like, it's all there, but I just don't think in this. It's highly possible, but not probable.
The sun is setting on Big Ben too, huh?
Yes, I think it's probably the eclipse at this point because, those games against Jacksonville, he was a shell of himself, and the way they went out, and I think they tried to make it a game in the end, but we saw that game that Jacksonville was flying up and down the field, running circles around that man, and he was just a sitting duck every single time, and the Jags just feasted on him, and so I don't see it. I just don't see it at this point happening for Roethlisberger. That's one reason why Mason Rudolph came in. Roethlisberger already said he's not going to mentor. He's doing the Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers move in terms of I'm not going to take him under my wing, blah blah blah. So he's probably just going to let him figure it out on his own. Of course, Le'Veon Bell. This is his, like you said, it's probably his last hurrah as a Steeler. We know how the running back wall hits at 30 and it goes downhill from there, and the Steelers are afraid to pay him. So it's going to be a transition. If Roethlisberger can stay upright, then they have a chance. But if he's going to be getting sacked on every single possession, I can't say he's going to run for his life because he can't run with him. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck, Pittsburgh.
All right. So at this point, we're gonna go to again. Who do you guys think is gonna finish first and through fourth in the division? So this time I'll start with Dwayne. Give us the order of finish for the AFC North.
Well, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland.
Hey, you stole my answer. Stop looking at my paper.
Uh,
Eyes emoji.
okay, so Jade, you have the same order.
I did.
All right. I don't know. Do I want to put the Bengals in front of Baltimore this year? That's kind of my only question. So I'll do that. I'll go Pittsburgh, the Bengals, Baltimore, and the Browns
Interesting.
as my as the division this year. So
So you didn't have to say Cleveland because we already know where they're going to be.
We already know where they stand.
now for some just NFL news and notes. This is really hurtful to my soul. Redskin running back Darius Geis is out for the season with torn ACL that he suffered Thursday night against the Patriots. Just got to see a few flashes and it was going to be great. And now we got to wait till next year. So speedy recovery for him. And hopefully next year he can come back and be injury free.
Moment of silence.
Please.
Man, those ACL tears are nothing nice. I've never torn my ACL, but it's just, man, knees ain't the same after that.
And you know who you never trust? The player, because he's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's all right.
He just want to play.
All right.
Awful.
I'm good.
He already knows, like, oh, crap.
Like, sir, your leg is hanging off of the rest of your body. I can do it.
Go back out there.
I can hop into the red zone. Okay.
Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater both were very impressive for the Jets in their preseason opener. So that quarterback controversy is alive and well. And Saquon Barkley, he went for 35 yards on his first carry as a professional in their game the other night. So very impressive debuts for some of these rookies. Sam Darnold looked really good. I actually was watching some of that at the bar last night. They were moving him around. He did pretty good in the red zone. So it may not be a foregone conclusion that Teddy Bridgewater is going to just win the job outright. They might actually start the kid.
As they probably should. I think he was the most ready and out of all the quarterbacks anyway. So good pickup for the Jets, a big steal, and he looks good doing it. Hopefully he wins the job from Teddy. I don't think Teddy. I mean, Teddy looked good, but I'm still worried. I think one smack to that knee and it's gonna be a wrap.
All right, now Miss J to the match. Before we go into our shout outs and thank yous, let's talk about your other favorite passion in the fall besides the Chicago Bears. That is the SEC and particularly the Tennessee Vols. You guys are coming in with a new coach this year, got rid of Butch Jones and everything that came with.
Hallelujah.
Ooh, boy.
So give us a few minutes on some players to look out for this year for Tennessee, what you think about the new coach, and kind of what would be a good season in your eyes coming off of this coaching change.
Coming off the coaching change, I'll just be like, I already know we're not going to beat Alabama. But then again, I don't know that because we have their former defensive coordinator. But looking forward to Jeremy Pruitt's team. Last year we finished 4-8. So as long as we do better than that, again, you got to set the bar low so you don't get disappointed. But I'm looking forward to seeing Jared Garantano. I can never say his name right. I just call him the G-Man, our QB. He's a year older, and it's really, he's our starter. So it's up to him. Get some offense going. I'm not worried about our defense because, again, like I said, we got Alabama's former defensive coordinator. So, he had top defense in the nation when he was at Alabama. So looking forward to some defensive scoring as well. Again, it is his first year, so it's a rebuild season for us. But hopefully we can at least I'd be just happy if we made a bowl game. But there's a lot that the Vols have to adjust, not just on the field, but off the field, team morale, things like that. You know, the Butch Jones era, team morale wasn't really there, and that definitely has an effect with your on the field play. So, looking forward to this season for us. Pruitt's a good recruiter. We've got some good talent coming in, 3-4 star, well, 3 and 4 star players. So yeah, it'll be an exciting season. Again, I'm not gonna I don't expect us to go 12-0, but at least make a bowl game.
Okay. What about you? Talk about your quarterback right fast before we, that's
The
always a big
G-Man,
question. Yeah.
the boy's got a rocket for an arm. And under Butch Jones underutilized a lot of players, and that was one of the downfalls of his tenure. Just underutilizing players. I feel like he should have used Guarantano a lot more. So I'm looking forward. He's got the receivers. His confidence is there. He's got the arm. So we've got all new coaches. So it's fun watching him play. The boy, he can run. He can throw. He's a great all around. A lot of QBs, they can either throw or they can run. There aren't that many that can do both. We did have Josh Dobbs who could do both. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the G-Man do a lot more on the field.
All right. So a little bit of Tennessee preview as well to go with the NFC North and AFC North previews as well. So be looking out for Jade on Twitter during football season. She's definitely crazy about her Vols. So
do not go at the Vols the wrong way towards her.
You already know, because Vol Twitter will come for you. I will lead the lynch mob.
I'm not going to get swallowed in orange. I refuse. I do not want those problems.
I know that.
But at least I'm a little more realistic than some of the other Vols fans. So a lot of them are just a little ridiculous. I'm like, all right, guys, we really do suck. Let's just, be plain and clear. Or at least under Butch Jones, we did. But
I try to get through Knoxville as quickly as I can.
Well, Darth Kudo, he actually lives in Knoxville. So
yeah, he does.
So you think you're going to be able to escape the Drake curse? Because I know me and you taught, and there's that.
Well, yeah, because now he's wearing Missouri sweatshirts now, so we're good.
Switched off.
We're off the hook.
Anybody that knows me well, he could keep the Missouri stuff on, because anybody that knows me knows how I feel about Missouri. Muck Fazoo all day, every day. All day.
All right. So at this point, Jade, I'll open it up to you for your thank yous and shout outs. And final thought, if you had a final thought as well. I'm sorry.
Final thoughts. This was fun. Thanks to Don and Dwayne for having me. Clearly, I love Don if I woke up this early on a Saturday morning to record a podcast. Thanks for having me, and hope I can come back again soon.
No problem. Thanks for coming, and thank you.
We'd love to have you.
I'll do my homework next time. It was a long week.
Dwayne, your shout outs and final thoughts?
Well, thank you, Jade, for coming. You did awesome. Shout out to Jesse and the Bias, all the listeners on the CSPN, all the podcast hosts, whether you like me or not.
Did you say podcast hosts?
Hosts.
Oh.
Don't be trying to
No, I would not the host, but host do love too, but no, not in this case. But yeah, so my final thought, the Premier League is back, and season started yesterday with Manchester United. They unfortunately won, but I wasn't surprised. Most of the league is in full swing. There's a couple games tomorrow, including Liverpool playing at 8:30 in the morning. So I'll probably be up early to watch that. But But it's good to have Premier League soccer back. Probably the best soccer league in the world. In my opinion, um, there's always a lot of excitement, a lot of unpredictability. Anybody has a shot to beat anybody, regardless of how much you spend or how much talent you have. Anything can happen in the league. And but aside from that, it's a sign that fall is coming, and the best time of year is coming around October. So can't wait for that.
All right. I'd like to thank Jade and Dwayne for joining me to help review or preview, excuse me, the AFC North and the NFC North and get a little Tennessee talk in there as well. I'd like to thank everybody here on the CSPN. Please check out the Patreon site at www.patreon.com/CSPN media. If you sign up and become a backstage member, you get some exclusive content that we have up on the Patreon that we are currently refreshing and updating. So there's a lot of cool things over there for you guys to check out. So please consider becoming a patron of the CSPN. My final thought will be about NASCAR. It was the best of times and it was the worst of times in less than 24 hours. As on Sunday, Chase Elliott, the heir apparent to the Jeff Gordon throne, after 99 starts, finally won his first Cup race. It's been a long time coming. It's a universal, win throughout all of NASCAR. All of the drivers were excited. All the fans were excited. There's a lot of similarities to his Hall of Fame father. Chase Elliott had finished second 8 times, just like his dad. His dad also won his first race on a road course as well, and Watkins Glen is a road course. Bill Elliott was there helping him out on Sunday, so it was just a really good story, feel good story for NASCAR. Really, this is what everybody's been waiting for. He's the most popular driver. He's the guy that everybody just needs to win. As long as he starts winning, then NASCAR can put their full muscle of promotion behind them and kind of put themselves back on the map with him as the face. And then on Monday, less than 24 hours later, the CEO of NASCAR got arrested for drunken driving and illegal prescription drugs. So for the brightest of sunshines came the darkest of clouds for NASCAR in less than a 24-hour period. So
your imagery is amazing.
Thank you. So, a lot of people are talking about how Brian France, who is the CEO of NASCAR, he really isn't like in your face type of CEO. He doesn't really show up at a lot of events. He shows up at the beginning of the season to kind of give you a state of NASCAR. He kind of shows up at the end and at the award ceremonies, but he's not that visible. So a lot of people were debating about, did this take away from Chase, and was there too much negativity on, focusing on Brian France? So it's just a weird week for NASCAR in general, but hopefully, Chase can follow it up with another impressive showing or another win here in the next couple of weeks, and everybody can forget about this Brian France thing and just focus on Chase Elliott coming to the front and, establishing himself as the newest star of NASCAR. So good luck to him and all the young guys that are, going to be chasing him for years to come. So on that note, for my co-host, Dwayne, and our special guest, Jade to the Max, I'm Don Delarente, and now you know the score. All right, Sean. Good deal. Thank you, Miss Jade. I thought you were going to be at home in Chicago. That's the reason why I scheduled it for this time. If you were going to be...
No, next week. Wait, what's today? Today is Saturday. Yeah, I was home I was home last weekend. Now we're still on air.
That's only on the on the thing here.